out to those around me, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Great singing this morning.
Thank you for that. This is Ryan's 4th anniversary. Can we thank him for that? 4 years of leading in music and helping just with the day-to-day operations of the church and the school. Ryan is a busy, busy man, and I appreciate all the work that he puts into Calvary Baptist Church and keeping things moving forward. It's good to have you here. I know that today there's a couple things going on this weekend. We have Valentine's Day, and we have, what's the other thing that's going on this weekend? Oh yeah, some kind of football, soccer, or something going on this weekend. So last week I told you about calories consumed when you drink a mocha super frappuccino latte, right? So 500 calories. If you do that for 365 days, it's 186,000 calories. If you do that over the course of 30 years, you will have gained, or your body will have had to keep off 1,200 pounds. That's a lot of weight, isn't it? Well, I wanted to continue the same kind of vein, and I don't know, maybe every Sunday morning we'll just talk about food. I don't know. Do you realize that the Super Bowl, there's 1.5 billion wings that are consumed on this day? That's a lot of wings, isn't it? How many of you like wings? All right, yeah, me too. So the average human consumes, yeah, Ryan, if you could get the AC. The average human consumes about, I think it's 8,000 wings over the course of their whole lifetime. Now, wings are kind of a new thing. I wouldn't think that there have been enough people have died to figure out that that's how many wings, but I don't know, maybe they extrapolate it out or something. 8,000 wings. I eat wings nearly every week of my life. Now recently, this past year, in 2021, there was a wing shortage. And because of that, this time last year, we were not able to get the wings that we wanted. In fact, if you remember last year, the wing places were selling different chicken body parts and just deep frying them to kind of make up for it. Well, the Chicken Health Association has weighed in on Super Bowl Sunday and has said that there are stockpiled in all the warehouses in the United States today 27 million pounds of wings, frozen, ready for distribution. So you will not be out of wings today. Now, I would not advise you to go to a wing stop today. I'd steer way clear of them. Might be the time to go to H-E-B and get your own. In fact, Jay and I went to H-E-B yesterday. We went to see if they had any wings, and sure enough, we got 10 pounds of wings. We'll be cooking them this afternoon and doing our part to whittle away at that 1.5 billion wings. It's I don't follow the Super Bowl, but I do like to eat wings anytime I get a chance to, and I'm doing that. Let me give you another statistic here. My other statistic fell off. Okay, let me tell you this other statistic. It's Valentine's Day weekend, isn't it? And so Valentine's Day weekend, let me give you the stats for this. Because, you know, we buy Valentine's Day chocolate for our spouses and things like that. So here's the statistic for Valentine's Day. There's over 58 million pounds of chocolate that is consumed on Valentine's Day. That's a lot of chocolate, isn't it? 58 million. People spend $2.4 billion on candy, presumably mostly for Valentine's Day. So, you know, between the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day, I think it's pretty safe to say that all of us are going to consume more calories than we should, all right? So come Monday morning, make sure to get on the treadmill or watch somebody else get on the treadmill and work that thing off. Valentine's Day and the Super Bowl. So this morning I want to talk to you about an epidemic that's taking place in America today. I'm not talking about the pandemic of COVID, but I want to talk to you about this epidemic that is not just in America, but really is throughout the world. And it's infiltrating every country and every state and really every kind of culture and society today. The epidemic that I want to talk to you here this morning about is the epidemic of loneliness. The epidemic of loneliness. Today, in fact, let me give you a couple statistics. In terms of like loneliness, but the first thing I want to talk about is Facebook, because a lot of you presume that your Facebook friends are your friends, right? So I want to do a quick study. This morning, when we did this study, I asked how many Facebook friends people had, and it wasn't until we got down to like the 500 range that people started raising their hands. So I'm assuming that you have more Facebook friends than the early morning crowd, all right? So we're going to try this out real quick. How many of you have more than 2,000 Facebook friends? Raise your hand. All right, Katie raised her hand. Anybody else? How about who has between 1,000 and 2,000 friends on Facebook? Raise your hand. All right, lots of popular people. How about between 500 and 1,000? Raise your hand. All right. How about under 500? Raise your hand. Okay, so you're about as popular as the morning crowd. That's not actually bad. It's not bad because the average person has 229 Facebook friends. Now, here's what I want you to think about this. This room is crowded. We have people in overflow. This room holds about 110 people. So the number of people that you have contact with every day of your life is double the size of this room. You know when their birthdays are. You know when they have a child. You know if someone is sick. You know if someone threw up. You know if they're in a car accident. You even know what they ate for lunch, right? You know everything about 229 people or 500 people. You and I have connections like crazy. But the problem is that many times we confuse connections with actual friends. We think that because we have 500 people that we are popular. We have 500 people that love and support us and will care and die for us if need be. And when it comes down to it, in reality, really, these are people that are they're disconnected from us. They're not friends. I think this kind of goes back to the epidemic that I was talking about. Let me give you a statistic that has just really shot up over the past few years during COVID. There are 330 million Americans, and 61% of those Americans surveyed consider themselves to be lonely. Now, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? We have social media, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have Twitter. You're connected, you know a lot of people, and yet 61% of Americans feel isolated and all alone. How can that actually be? It continues on. This is a survey. This comes from an article called Making Care Common. It's talking about loneliness in COVID. Similar statistics, but he said this one says 40% of people feel lonely frequently, or they feel lonely almost all the time. Here's the statistic that I want you to get. 61% of 18 through 25-year-olds say that they're lonely. These are the millennials, right? These are the ones that are connected. They're chatting with 10 different people at the same time. They're on Facebook. They're commenting on Instagram. They're following people on Twitter. They're well connected. They know what's going on geopolitically. We know what's going on in the Ukraine. We know what's going on in every state in the union, what's happening in Canada. We know all the stuff. We know what at least 200, 300 people are eating every day. We know, but we're not connected. 61% of young people who would be the most connected through social media feel lonely. 63% as a result of young people today report experiencing substantial symptoms of anxiety and depression. Now, this is an amazing statistic because I think for all of us, when we entered into the social media generation, we thought that this would be way different. We thought that connections would be made and deep friendships would be formed, and people will feel like they're part of a community, is something big. But this article says this: many people report serious loneliness, and they feel as if no one genuinely cares about them. The survey also suggested that lonely people often feel they're reaching out and they're listening to other people more than other people are reaching out and listening to them. The writer of the article said this can become self-defeating. When you feel like you're trying hard while other people are not trying hard, or you feel like you're going to get rejected again, you're going to withdraw, and it's going to increase your loneliness, and it's going to increase your anxiety about social situations because you'll still feel alone. The article continues to talk about one of the reasons why people are lonely, and it uses a phrase or a term that all of us should really think deeply about. It's the term hyper-individualistic. Hyper-individualistic. It means that I live for myself, by myself. When you're hyper-individualistic, you don't need anybody, and when you do need somebody, it's because you need to get something out of them. In fact, many friendships are formed today based on that premise. I need what they have, and I'm going to be their friend so I can get it out of them. And as soon as I have depleted what I needed out of them, I'll move to the next person and do the same thing. This hyper-individualism is what is causing a lot of this. The article says that they feel like no one genuinely cares about them, and that people are not interested in the things that they have to say. It continues to say that lonely people say, I have nobody to talk to, I feel disconnected from the world, I feel left out, and I don't feel I'm understood. So today we have people who are all around us, but there's people that are very lonely. And my premise today, the idea that I want to get across here today, is that every Christian in this room needs to have at least one friend. Every person in this room needs to have at least one friend. Let me give you let's do a quick poll here. And I'm going to hold up fingers. And you don't have to respond back. You don't have to hold up your hand. You don't have to say anything. But how many good, real friends do you have? Is it 10? 9? 8? 7? 6? Is it just one hand? 5? 4? 3? How many friends? 2? Is there one person in your life that you could consider outside of your spouse to be your friend? Maybe you're here today and the answer is actually 0. You're a Christian sitting in a room full of people, and yet you're all alone. You're lonely. There should not ever be a Christian at Calvary Baptist Church who feels as if they are all alone. What I want to do here this morning is maybe encourage you today, number 1, to find a friend, and number 2, to be a friend. Not the kind of friend that's represented in our world today, that we're connected and we have superficial conversations, but we don't know each other at a deeper level. That's the kind of friendships that we're talking about here this morning. Every person in this room needs to have a friend. Let me give you a passage in Genesis chapter number 2, verse 18. You know, when we think about the beginning of the world, remember God created the heavens and the earth. He created all the animal life. He created Adam. Do you remember the first problem that God spoke about after He had created everything? Do you remember what the first problem was? Loneliness. Here's the passage, Genesis 2:18. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone." The first problem on earth was not sin, it was loneliness. He looked at Adam and he said, this man needs a helpmeet. Now, in this particular situation, Eve came right along and then ruined everything for him, right? God said, it is not good that man should be alone. Do you understand it's not God's will for you to go through life all by yourself? Let me show you another passage, Ecclesiastes chapter number 4. The writer of Ecclesiastes chapter number 4 is giving us the reason why we can't live our life by ourselves. He gives us 4 reasons. Let me go through them, found in verse number 9, beginning there. He says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. So the first thing that we see here is that when 2 people are friends and they can work shoulder to shoulder, they have a better reward for their labor. Now, the term that we use today is the word synergy. Synergy means that you can do more together than two people can do separately. Does that make sense? 1 plus 1, when there's synergy involved, does not equal 2. It equals 15. And whenever you have somebody that can come alongside of you shoulder to shoulder and labor with you, there is a bountiful reward. But look what he says. When you have a friend, there's a better reward. Number 2, when you have a friend, you don't have to die alone. There's less chance of failure. He says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. The only thing I can think of today in our connected society is whether or not you were maybe wilderness hiking all by yourself with no cell phone service. If you fell and broke your leg, what would happen? Now, you and I are not in a wilderness and we don't have our leg broken, but you realize that many people here today are surrounded by people and their leg is broken? They're lonely and isolated, and they don't have someone to lift them up. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. You need a friend because it decreases your chance of failure. Let me show you another thing. Verse number 11 says, again, if two lie together, then they have heat. Now, when I think of this, I think of being married. And my wife likes to keep it really, it's all PG, folks. I'm not going anywhere. My wife likes to keep it really cold. She doesn't turn the heat on. She likes it freezing. That means I have to wear socks and I have to put like a quilt on my feet so that I don't assume room temperature. It's cold. So when I think of heat, I think of just two bodies under the covers that are able to heat the room up, heat the bed up. But really, this is much more abstract than that. When you're in a place that is cold and dark, you need somebody else to just help you maintain your heat. You need someone else that you can feed off of during those lonely moments, or you will completely die or get cold. You need another person. What the illustration here is that a friend will keep you warm during dark and cold times. Continuing on, he says here, but how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. The third thing that we see here is that a friend will increase the likelihood of success against attacks. When there's two people fighting, you're able to watch your back. One person's looking forward, the other's looking back, and you're protecting and caring for one another. And the passage here is saying that a friend is someone who is there and available and going to help you be successful in attacks. And do you realize that there are people out there today who have demons of their mind, of their past, bad habits that are attacking them from every side, every angle, and there's no one to help them fight their battle? He continues to say a threefold cord is not quickly broken. During heavy times of strain and of tension, if you're single-threaded, you'll break. During times of weighty moments, if you don't have a friend intertwined in your life, you'll break. The passage here is very clearly illustrating that you are not meant to live alone. Now, the Bible. The Bible is about God revealing himself to us, right? He tells us how we can have a relationship with him. An amazing thought. Omniscient, all-powerful God creates humanity who rebels against him, and God, from Genesis to Revelation, pursues after man in order to forgive them and save them and restore that relationship. That's the story of the Bible. But you realize the Bible is not just about your relationship with God. It's your relationship with man. In fact, there are large swaths of the New Testament and even the Old Testament that are stories about the way people relate to other people. And so Christian, the illustration here is that you and I need to have friends. The Bible clearly illustrates that it is a vertical relationship, but it's also horizontal. He tells us how we're to live. And I want to give you just a couple points. Now, it's not going to be exhaustive. But what I do want you to do when you leave here is say, number one, I need to have a friend. And number two, I need to find a friend. Because no Christian should ever be lonely. Let me give you 3 points here this morning, and then we'll be done. The 3 points, number one, is that there's going to be drama with friends, but it's worth it. The second point is that you're going to need to be vulnerable, but the Lord will bless. And number 3 is that friendship will require sacrifice. Let's go through this message here this morning. Number 1, to have healthy friendships, number 1, means to realize that there will be drama and conflict. How many of you love drama? There's one? No, he's like, no. You like drama? No one loves drama. How many of you have drama personally in your own life? Go ahead, raise your hand. You're all very dramatic people. Here's the problem. You have drama in your life, and there are people that have drama in their life, and you want no part of their drama. You just want to have your own drama. You know why? Because drama is, it's time-sucking, right? It's like, oh, I have this person. They always have these problems. There's always these issues in their life, and I just don't want the drama. I have my own drama. I don't need the other drama. Do you realize that as a friend, God has wired you to not only deal with your drama, but to be able to deal with the drama and conflict of other people? Sometimes the reason that we're lonely is because we say, it's too much work. The Bible shows us clearly that work is worth the effort to have friends. Now, the Bible, specifically the Pauline epistles, is all about drama. Now think of this drama. 1 Corinthians. A man in the church is sleeping with his mom. You think that there'd be a little drama if that was happening at Calvary Baptist Church? You think there would be like people talking about it? What is going on? Is this a soap opera around this church? What's going on? There'd be people talking about it. I bet that if you saw the man who was sleeping with his mom, you wouldn't say, hey, how's your wife doing? I bet you'd probably want to ignore them, right? There's drama in this. If you were an outsider going into the church in Corinth, you would no doubt, if you went to 2 Sunday morning services, there's no doubt you'd hear about the drama. Because it's like the whisper of the church. There was drama in the early church. In Ephesians chapter number 4, the Bible tells us that we're to love and care for and not be angry with one another. We're to submit to each other in humility. Do you realize why the Bible tells you you're not supposed to be angry with one another? Because you get angry with one another. There are going to be times where 2 friends, 2 people will get angry with one another. The Bible is laying this clearly, completely out, that there is going to be drama and conflict in a relationship and in a friendship, but it is worth it. Romans chapter number 14. Here's one particular sort of drama. Romans chapter number 14. Let me find the passage here. The problem that is going on in Romans chapter number 14 is that people are judging one another because of what they eat or what day they worship. So here's the thought, that they're judging one another based on what they eat. So can you imagine coming to church and someone says, this is a more pertinent example. I'm a vegan. Not me. I eat chicken wings. Not the fake chicken wings. If you've had them, I'm sure they're fine. Just want you to know, all that fake sinew, it's all chemicals. It's not real. I'm a vegan. Well, bless God Almighty, you know that's against the Bible to be vegan. You know, you're supposed to eat meat. Don't you remember, like in the Old Testament, it was like a constant barbecue of sacrifices. You're supposed to eat meat. Imagine going to a potluck and having opinions on the kinds of food people ate. Norm Sweet brings barbecue, and some sweet little old lady says, Norm, bless your heart, you know you're supposed to be casseroles. Green bean casseroles. We need 10 different flavors of green bean casseroles. It's a Baptist church at a potluck. Can you imagine 2 people fighting over that? I can't believe they brought barbecue. I can't believe they're using that bad recipe of green bean casserole again. Look, the Bible is saying that there was drama in the local church over what people allowed themselves to eat. Not only that, what day that people worship. Now, can you imagine if we had church on Saturday morning? Let's say this morning I say, hey, church, we're not going to have church on Sundays anymore. We're going to move it to Saturday. Can you imagine, not with you, but the early morning crowd. Can you imagine the uproar? What do you mean have a church on Saturday? We've never had church on Saturday. They've been having church on Sunday for thousands of years. That's not right. There'd be a church split with the early crowd, not these crowds. There'd be conversations and arguments. You're not supposed to have church on Saturday. It could cause a big upheaval. The problem is in Romans chapter number 14, there were people who were in close relationships where there was drama and conflict, and Paul never said, hightail it out of there. He said, work it out. Figure it out. Work it out as friends, because it is better to be a friend with someone that has drama than to stand by yourself, lonely and isolated, because Satan wants you to be isolated. He wants you to be alone. He wants you to think that you're alone, because when he can get you alone, he can feed you all kinds of things in your mind. Things about other people, about church, about God, about yourself. You need friends, and you need Christian friends. How many friends do you have? Can you count it on two hands, one hand, one finger? You need to have a Christian friend. But you have to realize that there's going to be drama and conflict, but it's going to be worth it. Number two, it's going to mean that you will need to be vulnerable. How many of you had a best friend when you were a kid? Raise your hand. I had a best friend. His name is John. And we watched some kind of Indian Western movie where, the star of the show, John Wayne, was the Indian. And they did this blood brother thing. So blood brother, if you've ever heard of this, it's where you take a knife, Bowie knife, stick it in your finger till it bleeds. Your friend does it, and you join together as blood brothers. It's what all the Indians did back in the day. That's how you became friends. My friend John and I, we became blood brothers. We found a vine, squeezed our finger on it, joined our fingers together, and forever we would be blood brothers. Do you realize that blood brothers will sometimes not be your friends? You can make the deepest commitment to another person, and sometimes they'll turn their back on you. You can be all in and pour all of your emotions and truth and your backstory into a friendship and find out that they're not in it for the right reasons. They're not a person that's a long-term friend. And what can happen many times is that Christians, we say, you know what, I've been hurt, burned. I can't find the right friend, so I'm just going to be all by myself, and I'm going to fake my friends. I'm going to have a superficial relationship. When I come in, I shake Pastor's hand. Hi, Pastor. How's your day? Well, your dog just died, but you don't want to talk about that because there might be a deeper conversation about your dog dying. So you say, oh, it was fine. It was just my cat died. It's not a big deal. Pastor says, oh, yeah, cats, they live and die, give birth. You don't want to talk about the deep things because you don't want to be vulnerable, because you don't have the time for it and you'll just get burned. You think the other person's going to come up with an opinion on you because you're not perfect. I think in church, the worst thing that can happen in church on Sunday morning is that you act perfect. Come in with a smile, inside you're broken. Walk around and shake hands, and you're desperate to cry out to somebody. And then you leave church 12:05, heading to Golden Corral, and you've never made a friend. You've never connected with somebody. You've never been vulnerable with someone. I want you to know, if you isolate yourself, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. When Satan is the destroyer of hearts, and if he can isolate you, he can keep from good people speaking into your life. He can keep you from unloading your burdens on someone else, and they give you maybe a different or better perspective on the problem. If you're going to develop healthy, whole, biblical relationships, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to be honest. You're going to have to find somebody that you're not holding anything back. You're going to have to actually develop a friendship. You're going to have to actually get close. Now, let me show you a passage, John chapter number 15. Now, John chapter 15, this is Jesus speaking to his disciples. And a couple things before we look at this passage. You realize Jesus had 12 friends, right? The disciples. This was the first church. The first church was Jesus as the pastor and the disciples being discipled by the master, by Jesus. And here's Jesus, and there are many times where Jesus could have, and Jesus did call his disciples on the carpet. There are many times where Jesus just had these conversations about how dumb can you actually be. Now, can you imagine being Jesus and knowing everything and knowing that this person that will, knowing that you're sharing your deepest hearts and thoughts and what God is showing you, and knowing that one of those people is actually a devil, Judas? Can you imagine pouring into somebody knowing that eventually they're going to be turning on you? How many of you would try to get rid of that person before they got rid of you? Right? That's not what happened. Jesus had 12 disciples. The other 11 were pretty stupid. There's one passage in the Bible where they're arguing back and forth. I don't have it. They're arguing back and forth. So here's what's happening. Here's Jesus. He's walking to this conversation with the disciples, and they're fighting with one another. Okay, the testosterone is flowing. They're screaming and yelling at each other. They're hitting chests against one another. They're mad at each other. And guess what they're arguing about? Who's going to be the greatest in heaven? That sounds like a stupid thing to argue about. I'm going to be greatest. Who's going to have the biggest mansion? I'm going to have the biggest mansion. These guys were bought in, right? They knew Jesus was God. They knew one day they'd spend eternity. But their flesh got in, and they were arguing and fighting with one another about who's going to be better in heaven. Now, that's like me arguing with you about how many jars of pickles are going to be in heaven. I hope it's infinity. I don't know. But I'm not going to get an argument with you about it, right? They're getting an argument. Now, if I was Jesus, I would say, you know what? These people are a bunch of idiots. Or Peter, one of you is going to forsake me. And Peter says, that's not going to be me, God. You fool, you idiot. You know what Jesus was perfect, and he discipled his disciples. But he was open, and if you allow the term, vulnerable and transparent with his disciples. He talked to them about everything. You know what Jesus didn't do? He didn't say, all right, you guys are my disciples, but those guys over there are my friends. So, you guys are my disciples, but I can't get too close to you because you're a bunch of morons. But the people over there, they're my friends. So we're gonna sit around the fireside. We're gonna cook some fish. I'm gonna give you a couple parables, and then you guys go shopping because I want to go hang out with my other friends. He didn't do that. I know it's a very simple point, but do you see what I'm saying? Is that many times Christians in the church environment where you're supposed to have friends, it's the same place where we're not vulnerable at all. We're standoffish, we're close. We say, I want to be friendly in church, but I don't want to have friends in church because I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be exposed. I don't want people to know my problems. I need to go find some anonymous person to be my friend because no one in church should be my friend. Listen, Christian, it is antithetical to the very setup of the church for us to not be friends. That's what the Bible is all about. It's about how can we be friends with one another in relationships, honoring the Lord and growing in grace and mercy and looking more like Him. But it's going to take, Christian, look, if you're going to have a healthy relationship, it's going to take you being vulnerable. That means that sometimes you're going to get burned, but you're going to get right back up and be vulnerable again. It means that sometimes you're going to invest and it's not going to work out, and you're going to have a tendency to want to pull back into the safe zone and be independent and be individualistic and say, it's just not my thing. Pastor, I show up, I shake your hand, and then I'm out of here, and that's good enough. Let me just be friendly with you, but please don't make me be vulnerable with you. Don't make me talk about my problems. Don't make me have to enter into a personal relationship with someone. Just let me be on the surface. And listen, Christian, if that's you here today, you have to realize that you are lonely and isolated, and it is not good. You will eventually fall. Mentally, spiritually, physically, you need other Christians to speak into your life. That is why God has put us in this room together. That's why we're here. If you have friends, you have to realize that there's going to be some drama and conflict. But there's drama and conflict in your life. Why not share your drama and conflict with someone else? There's going to be drama and conflict. You're not going to find the perfect person. You're going to have to be vulnerable. And the last thing I want you to see here this morning, developing friendships, healthy friendships means that it's going to be a sacrifice. There's a term that's used today, friends with benefits. It means I can be a friend with somebody and get what I want to out of them, and they can get what they want to out of me, and there has to be no commitment. No sacrifice, no mutual sacrifice. It's just I get out of you what I want, you get out of me what I want, and then we move on. The problem is that many times that's the kind of friends that we have, where there's no sacrifice. I'll be your friend, but please do not call me after 6 o'clock. I'll be your friend, but it'll only be during the good times. And when things start going south, like, I don't know what to do. Like, depend on somebody else. What happens, I have in my notes here, what happens sometimes, Christian, is you and I can look at friendship from a self-centered concept, where friendship is more about what people can do for you and what you can get out of other people. And so many times, sometimes, people will find a friend not because they want to be their friend, but because they want to get something out of them. And once they get it out of them, they move to the next person and get it out of them. And then they go to the next person and get something out of them. And unfortunately, many times, Christian, within our culture, we can adopt the same kind of mentality where friendship is about what can I get out of somebody else. The term is hyper-individualistic. It's a term that all of us should remember. Because you're independent contractors. What can I get out of someone else? No commitment, just let me get something out of them and move to the next thing. But if you're going to have a healthy, God-honoring friendship, a friendship that is truly deep, it's going to require some amount of sacrifice. It's going to require you to maybe stay up late at night. It's going to require some of your emotional energy. It's going to require you to focus and help someone else at the point of draining yourself. But that is what friendships is all about. It's not this self-centered concept, but it's this outwardly focused concept where we're serving others and willing to spend ourselves to help the friend in need. If you're going to have a friendship, if you're going to have a healthy friendship, you can't be in this position where I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm going to control my image. I'm going to drop little nuggets of little things across my facade, and I'm going to make that person think that I'm their friend, and I'm going to try to do this at a distance so I don't have to sacrifice anything into it. It's not going to work. In fact, it's not really a friendship, and you're just going to hurt the relationship that you had. Because ultimately, to have a healthy friendship, it's going to require sacrifice. It's going to be draining. It's going to be time-consuming. Your friend maybe will do things that are stupid. How many of you have stupid friends? At least you have a friend, right? They're going to do stupid things. And you're going to want to say, you know what, I need to pull out of Dodge. This person is they're just a handful. Can I just have a low-maintenance friend? Understand that Jesus Christ, God, desired a relationship with us to the extent that he sent his only begotten Son to die on the cross for our sins. He desires to have a vertical relationship with us where we follow him in obedience and we are his friend. And you know, I think nearly probably every day of our life, sometimes we betray the friendship that we have with Christ. We cheat on him. We're emotionally distant. We're not conversant. You say, God, the kind of relationship that I want from you is you bless me, keep me out of car accidents, give me a raise, don't make me go to church. Read your Bible. Can we just have a different kind of relationship here, God? Many times, Christians have a relationship with God the way the world has a relationship with one another. The first thing you need to do is say, God, I repent. I am sorry for the way I just use you for my own benefit. But number two, You need to see other people you need to treat other people the way God treats you. God forgives. He pursues. The Old Testament. How often would I just gather you under my wings, Israel? But you would not. The children of Israel in Malachi said, God, we're tired of this. We don't want to worship you. We're tired of all the stuff. We just don't want to be part of this relationship anymore. God, can we just break up? And it broke God's heart. In nearly every prophet of the Old Testament, we see God's heart pouring out for Israel. Will you please come to me? And the children of Israel saying, God, can we just do this thing kind of standoffish? God pursues after us even in our most unlovely state. You and I need to pursue after other people in demonstration of Christ's love for us. You know why? Number one, because you were made to be in a friendship with somebody, not just your spouse. If you don't have a friend, number two, you're going to be lonely, isolated, and eventually will fall. Number three, friendships are worth it. They're worth the sacrifice. The drama is worth it. Being vulnerable and having your heart exposed and burned, it's worth it. Sacrifice is worth it because friendship is needed. 61% of 18 to 25-year-olds say they're completely lonely. Why is it that we don't want to invest in other people who say, I feel broken and empty, my leg is broken and no one cares and no one knows, I'm not going to tell anybody. Why will we not invest in other people? Listen, Calvary, we need to get past the shaking hands and smiling and maybe sitting down in the row and saying, you know what, my week was pretty doggone terrible. Let me tell you about it. The response needs to be, actually, Golden Corral. No, it's talking with them. God's called us to deeper relationships. The whole New Testament is about your relationship with one another and your relationship with God. Let's go and build relationships. You know why? Because they're needed. Because Christians will fall if they're all alone. Let me give you three ideas here this week that I want you to put into practice, all right? I'd love for you to do this. Look, I just want you to take what I've said and try to practice it this week. The first one, I want you to find one person that you can reach out to and befriend. It might not even be a person that you know, maybe a person that you've seen. Call them, instant message them, send them a mail thing, send them a note. Talk to them. Find one person. Rather than shaking hands and say, hey, Pastor, good to see you. Maybe it's stop and say, hey, tell me about your day. Who's your wife? Who's your kids? Talk to them. Get to know them. Number one, make this commitment that you're going to reach out to one person and try to befriend them. Number two, I want you to identify somebody that might actually really need a friend. Okay? You need friends, you need healthy relationships, but there are some people out there who need friends because they are going through trauma and crisis. They're on the edge of the cliff and they need help. And you're smart enough that you can identify those people. You can see it on their face, you can hear it in their tone. You know they need help. What they don't need you to do is kind of stand off and like awkwardly, I don't know, maybe I'll just put them out there. No, dive deep into their life and help them and encourage them. Don't let them be isolated. Number three, pray that God will make you a true friend to the friends that you have, whether it's 10 or 1. Pray that God will make you a true friend. Not a fair weather friend, not a friend that tries to extract, but a true friend who's willing to be vulnerable and sacrificial to invest in their life. You know why? Because our world desperately, desperately needs friendships. Calvary Baptist Church, I don't know about you, but I'll speak for myself. I need friends. We all need friends. We need somebody who's willing to say, hey, how's things going? Let's go out for lunch. We need deep friendships. Because there are a lot of people that are lonely. Tomorrow, I want to invite you to Luck's Funeral Home. 3 o'clock tomorrow for the funeral of Joshua Rodriguez. He grew up in this church at the age of 4 years old. He rode the bus, was raised in this church, as he got older, he didn't see them as much, but he knew your faces. He knew this church. He felt like this church was his family. This past week at the age of 24, he unexpectedly passed away. His whole family is devastated by this. And you never know when you see people how you could really make a difference in their life. If we got our eyes off of our schedule just a bit, if we got rid of all the busyness just for a moment and just looked for that one person who needs us, you could make a world of difference in their life. Jen normally sits over here. She needs your encouragement. She needs friends. And the bottom line here is that, Christian, no one should go through life alone. No one should feel lonely. In a church this size, everyone needs one friend. Dear God, it is strange that we know so many people, but we have so few of friends. We know what's going on in everybody's life, and yet we're alone and isolated. And Lord, I can't help but think that there are people in this room today who are suffering through some great traumatic experience, who maybe are at their wits' end with anxiety, who are fretting because of bills, who feel all alone. They're sitting in this room with other believers and they feel all alone. God, I pray that you'd encourage them. First, that you would encourage them through their relationship with you. But Lord, I pray that you give them the courage to reach out to someone in this room. I pray, Lord, that this week, even today, they would make a connection. Lord, for those in this room maybe that are not going through difficulty, and life's going all right, things are happening, Lord, I pray that we will not be satisfied being hyper-individualistic. I pray that you allow us to use the resources and the capacity that you've given us to sacrifice for someone else. I pray that Christians, Lord, in this room, in our church, I pray that you'll help us to not develop superficial relationships. I pray that you help us to develop deep, abiding, messy friendships. And I pray through the mess that both sides would discover the love of Christ even more. I pray that both sides would understand that this is why they're here. Lord, I pray that you'd help us not to be super individualistic, but you'll help us to be investors, depositors in the lives of other people we know. For it's in your name I pray. If you need a friend or you need to talk to somebody, I'll be down front. The music will play. Why don't you come talk to me? And I'd love to talk to you about whatever's going on and then maybe connect you with somebody that needs to connect with you, okay? Jimmy?